Annoying, grumpy, boring. These are the kinds of words that come to mind when we think about Squidward. He seems to be doing everything to stay in the same place and nothing to improve his position in life. Using Squidward as an example, I want to show how people, or especially you, can ruin their lives without even realizing it. Don't worry, it's not about TikTok. You can continue endlessly scrolling your feed. Instead, I want to talk about things that directly influence our lives. To understand our character a bit more, you need to understand that Squidward hates almost everything and everyone. However, he wasn't always like this. Like any other person who is toxic and apathetic, the reasons behind it go much deeper, usually directly back to their childhood. Even though the series doesn't provide specific information about Squidward's childhood, I can confidently say that people who are very strict and serious usually come from similarly strict and serious families. This brings us to our first reason for how we ruin our lives: expectations. High expectations often result from familial influence and become ingrained in a person's mindset over time. However, these high expectations can lead to disconnect between reality and perception. Sometimes people believe they are doing enough to meet these expectations, but in reality, they are merely maintaining their current status. Throughout his life, Squidward believed he was a talented musician and aspired to become a star in the arts. However, when things didn't go as expected and his talents weren't appreciated as he thought they should be, he faced disappointment. Squidward realized he may never achieve his goal because of a few people's negative opinions on his music. Instead of trying to prove them wrong though, he viewed this setback as a definitive judgment on his abilities. Consequently, he decided to play only for himself, where no one could question his skills. Usually, after your expectations of yourself fail, you discover the next thing that's going to destroy you: jealousy. Why him? Why not me? These are the kinds of questions you start to ask yourself after seeing someone achieve the results you thought you would. You may think the person is better than you in your field, not because of their ability, but because they got lucky. Of course, sometimes this may be true. Life is unfair after all, and people sometimes get jobs they don't deserve. But what's the point of being jealous? What if the person in a better position right now put in more effort than you to get there? You'd never know it. You only know how much effort you put in and how much you think you deserved. Spending time making assumptions about other people when you could spend that time doing something for yourself and trying to get closer to their achievements seems a bit useless, don't you think? Squidward has a complete version of all of his desires in the face of Squilliam Fancyson. Squilliam was Squidward's classmate in music school, and as a result, achieved all the success Squidward had dreamed of. Squilliam was always better than Squidward, and it was hard for Squidward to accept. A few interactions between these two usually led to Squidward's attempt to prove his value by showcasing his abilities in front of Squilliam, which usually made him look like a joke. This proves that he cannot accept the fact that someone was able to achieve the results he had always dreamed of without luck. Another thing that prevents people from achieving their goals is fear. Fear of failure, fear of what others will think about you, fear of being misunderstood. There are many things in life that you could fear, but there's a difference. For example, between having a fear of heights and a fear of failure. If a fear of heights usually comes from a bad life experience, a fear of failure comes from mental blocks that you place in your mind. And just like high expectations, these barriers can be imposed not only by you, but also by other people. Friends, parents, or even random individuals could make you feel that if you make a mistake or fail once, it's over. But in reality, the opposite is true. People who are successful now, making millions, most likely have made more mistakes than tens of people combined. So it's important to understand that fear is not something that really exists. It's something that was placed in your mind long ago, and sadly, no one can help you remove it except yourself. After just one poor performance, Squidward decided to give up on his dreams and end his music career. Without realizing it, he created non-existent obstacles in his mind that would never allow him to achieve his dreams. He is ready to live as a failure and work in his hated job just to avoid disgrace again. And when he returns home, he can play for himself and perform in front of absolutely no one, where nobody can criticize him. The next thing that some people underestimate, but which has a huge influence on our lives, is our environment. Many people believe that if you make friends with someone at a young age, you need to stay with them for the rest of your life, even if this person has a negative influence on you. I'm not saying, like other business gurus, that you need to leave all your broke friends and only talk to millionaires if you want to become successful, but use rational thinking. Every person has a good and bad quality. Sometimes the bad ones outweigh the good ones, and you need to distinguish when the bad ones are more prominent. Using Squidward as an example, I can say that his surroundings are not the best. His only two neighbors are not the smartest, SpongeBob and Patrick. In this kind of environment, it's hard to grow as a person. Even though Squidward hates his neighbors, I don't think he really wants to leave. His surroundings are perfect for his current mental state: unambitious, primitive, and somewhat stupid. This makes it a perfect place to live if you want to forget about your unattainable dreams and just live a simple life like everyone else on this planet. If he really wanted to, he could find some people with similar interests and intelligence, even in Bikini Bottom. but he has decided to close himself off and be alone, making it almost impossible to find new connections or friends. The last thing that has the biggest influence on our lives is basically ourselves, or better to say, how we feel about life. If you spend the whole day feeling apathetic and grumpy for no reason, the outcome will likely be the same. One of the reasons why you want to hang out with your friends is because of the positive emotional exchange. You never go to your friend's house expecting to sit in silence. The same goes for real life. If you wake up with the feeling that this day will be just awful as any other, it won't surprise you that it turns out to be a terrible day. Just like how you exchange energy when you talk to someone, you also exchange energy with the world simply by living in it. To feel a bit better, you need to exchange a bit more positive energy. In almost every episode, Squidward looks grumpy and unhappy, and even as a viewer, you might wonder when he will finally be happy. The only time you see Squidward smile is when he is alone at home, doing his favorite routine before or after work. When he steps out from his home, he immediately thinks about his hated job, the people he's gonna meet, and probably the salary he's working for. It's a kind of useless way of living, hating your job and the people around you, but not doing anything to change it or find a better place. He works knowing that his day will be terrible, and he just waits for his workday to be over so he can return home and do his favorite things, which, for the time being, help him escape reality. I think Squidward's persona reminds some of you of yourselves. Maybe you feel like you deserve more, or maybe you feel like this life is pointless. Squidward's life is all about unrealized dreams and a lack of desire to move forward. To not be like Squidward, you simply need to understand that everyone has their own journey. And if someone reaches success a bit earlier than you, it doesn't mean you won't reach it. You must take away jealousy and prove that the reason you think you're better than that person is meaningful.